Welcome to Mindful AI, the podcast where we explore how to create AI that is beneficial to humanity, ethical, and promotes human values and flourishing. Today, we're joined by Mike Spaeth, Global Vice President at the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute. From birdwatching in Central Park to guiding AI education across more than 160 countries, Mike brings a perspective that's both grounded and global. We explore the AI race, the challenge of keeping ethics in the conversation, and how education can prevent people from being left behind. From Africa to Asia to the US, Mike shares what he's seeing on the ground and why inclusive, mindful AI literacy matters now more than ever. If you find this episode insightful, please subscribe to Mindful AI and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring more of these important and meaningful conversations to you and others. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mindful AI podcast. Today, we're joined by Mike Spaeth, who's the Global VP of the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute, or the USAII, or both of them, a bit of a mouthful we're discussing here before we started. Anyways, welcome, Mike. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
We usually, we start these things off usually by asking our guests about something about them that is a bit unusual or something that most people maybe wouldn't know about them. So let's start there. What's something that people would not necessarily know about you?
Yeah, and I think it actually ties into the Mindful AI podcast and the fact that one of my big hobbies is bird watching, specifically in Central Park in New York City, where I live. And while bird watching, it just gives me the opportunity to be mindful while I'm searching out some of the birds in the fall, spring season. And the fall season is coming up to Central Park, so I'm excited to do some additional bird watching.
That's interesting. I was after we did the prep interview for this session. I was in a bookstore and I just walked by a book called Mindfulness in Bird Watching. So I realized I probably should have got it and sent you a copy, but I might still do that. But I thought that was very interesting because we had just talked to you and you shared this hobby of yours. Yeah, but I do agree that I think most people have something like that brings, like the mindfulness aspect to their life, some way of disconnecting, because I'm imagining that you're quite busy doing the things you do around AI in general. So having something to disconnect to that sounds like a wonderful thing.
And it also became quite handy during COVID because it gave us, it was really in New York City, the only place we could go is Central Park. And, for people outside the United States, Central Park in New York City is a great place for birds to stop because we have in the United States, we have Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. So there's not a lot of area for birds to land during a migration. So they historically all fly to that one, that one big piece of land that they see. That's the only piece over hundreds of miles. So you get a real opportunity to see some very rare birds in Central Park.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea that that Central Park in the middle of New York was a hotspot for bird watching. You learn something every day.
Yeah, they don't have any other options, right? That's the only place they can land.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. So for those of our listeners who might not know, would you mind just, first of all, sharing what the USAII is up to and what are you bringing to the world of AI?
I wanted to touch first on the goal and the mission, which is really USAII is wants to help people use AI, but also use it responsibly, making sure there's transparency and fairness in our certification process. So, we do focus on data privacy, fairness, transparency. Actually, 10% of our curriculum is devoted to ethical AI. And really we focus on educating students in AI. We focus on educating citizens, and in the corporate world, employees. We're really focusing on enabling people to be able to participate in the AI economy through education. And we help students get their first job. We work with students from the ages of 12 to 17. And then in some countries that are so AI forward, like Bahrain, we work on educating the citizenship. So, it's a fulfilling place to work because, we really try to empower people to be, AI proficient.
Thanks for sharing, Mike. I might jump in, Martin,
Yeah,
if that's
go
okay.
ahead. Of course.
For those listening, by the way, it's 6:30 a.m. here in Melbourne, 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m. I guess for Mike in the US. So as a disclaimer for me and Martin, if we are a bit wobbly at any stage. So I was listening as getting ready and having a cup of tea before we started one of the many podcasts available, conversations you had on the internet, Mike. And you're talking about how you're working with the government in Malaysia. And what came to mind is that there is an AI race happening right now, between countries, right? And I thought, okay, USAII AI Institute helping, empowering citizens in Malaysia. That's quite interesting. It's a positive, I think, aspect. So, yes, and listening to you now, what I was coming to mind as well is the institute is not a not-for-profit, I imagine, and because you work with governments, there was just that came to mind. I don't know if there is anything that you'd like to comment in terms of empowering other countries, which is a very positive aspect of the institute, and and the commercial aspects of the organization as well.
Yeah, and the position enables you to see, Natalie, as you mentioned, the race for AI and being able to see which countries are making the most progress, which citizens are the most readily eager to adopt to AI and improve their understanding and education in AI. And one of the things I'm focused on now is really AI in Africa. Had the opportunity to meet with the Africa AI Institute last week. One of the things we're focusing on is potential programs in Nigeria and Ghana. And it's a very young population. And that gives us the opportunity to bring education to the universities, also to grade schools, to be able to upskill the citizenship in Nigeria. And some countries, especially in the Middle East, are very sophisticated in their programs of bringing AI to the citizens, not just through education, but also the purchasing of licenses. So this is an opportunity for any country to be able to become part of this new AI world order. So it's a race, but it's the opportunity to participate in this race also through education.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, this reminds me, I just had a conversation yesterday with someone, and we just a question came up was whether AI is colonizing or decolonizing, in relation to Africa, for example. And the comment was that one way that it is decolonizing is that it's a real transfer of knowledge from what traditionally would have been called the developed countries. That's not a very good term, but it is a transfer of knowledge from that to arenas where that knowledge has not necessarily been readily available. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of lifting those countries up.
And you mentioned Nigeria and Ghana. Funnily enough, I was talking just a few days ago with Nazarene Ibrahim, if I'm pronouncing her surname correctly. And she might be our next guest here. And she's originally, her heritage is from India, but she's actually based in South Africa, very, very active in the African continent around AI. So yeah, I might connect you to her.
Oh, that would be
might
great.
be a good connection for you.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, because we're having conversations with AI leaders in every country on the continent, whether it's North Africa, the middle of the continent, South Africa. So, kind of including that individual in the conversation would be appreciated.
Pleasure.
So what led you, what's your personal journey in this? What led you to focus on this sector of AI and education and workforce development? And so was there a specific moment where you realized that democratizing AI knowledge was something crucial for our future with these technologies? Or how did you come to that?
Yeah, Martin. So I started my career in politics in Washington, D.C., really focusing on education, climate, labor, supporting of labor unions. And, that, focus then took me to New York it was the dot-com boom. So I had the opportunity to work with some companies at their infancy. I worked with Amazon when they only had 300 employees, when they only sold books. And I worked closely with them on their recommendation engine. So people who read this book and this title and this author also like these books. And it was simple, it was called collaborative filtering, but just really taking algorithms and putting people together, similar likes, and seeing that initial start. And then going from that type of personalization, I worked at IBM on early Watson AI. This was actually when Watson won Jeopardy back, I think it was 2010. And then since then, I've had the opportunity to work with Google and Microsoft on their AI projects, specifically taking into consideration satellite data and Earth observation data and feeding that into the models. And during this journey, which was, a long period of time, and I saw AI moving along, but never at this rate, right? Like, now you miss a day. Like, for example, I was listening to your podcast today on the potential cure for cancer. So if you don't listen to podcasts or read one day or 1 week, you're far behind. So I saw it moving so fast, and it became clear that there's an opportunity to, be a catastrophic situation where we leave a lot of people behind, where unemployment rates could hit 10, 20%. And the need to, move quickly is really what enabled me to make the decision to join USAII.
And so how do you think we can, so you mentioned unemployment, and there's a lot of fear that AI will replace us and take all our jobs. But I heard you speak about AI enhancing rather than necessarily replacing jobs. But how do we maintain agency and human dignity when AI systems just keep becoming increasingly more capable? So what is the role of this type of education that you do in preserving that which makes us uniquely human, and will AI replace us in the workforce, or how do you see that moving forward?
Well, yeah, I had a discussion this week and kind of delineating what AI can't do. And one of the key things AI can't do is what we're doing here together, is the face-to-face, the video-to-video in this case. I was meeting someone for lunch, and we said that, the new workforce will be able to accomplish activities face-to-face, while the AI is doing a lot of the things that you used to do at your desk. So it's almost like a reverse of what happened during COVID. Like maybe AI brings us back together in a lot of ways, because we can only accomplish certain things through face to face. So I think that's going to bring that back to the forefront.
Mike, I really love the point of stopping people from being left behind. Because AI literacy is a challenge. We're talking about developing countries before, and I can't help to think of, I'm originally from Brazil, and I was there last month, and I was very impressed. I think many developing countries are totally embracing, and I think we're way ahead of Australia in some ways, if I could say. So it's great to was one of the drivers for you. I'm really glad to hear that. And I heard you mention in another video that I watched, you'll be interviewed, that also how many people can feel intimidated by AI. And I believe the Institute is helping with education, again, with AI literacy, to people to overcome that. So you have certifications and courses for all levels, from C-level to students to, day-to-day end users of AI, etc. The certifications, your programs, they are tool agnostic, which is really good. So where I'm going with this, I don't know. So I think not leaving people behind, helping people not to kind of demystify AI. I think this is great. And we also had here a prodigy, a young entrepreneur, a Swedish friend of Martin. I think it was the second episode, Oliver. And we're talking about how different labs have different levels of AI ethical standards. I don't know, for lack of a better word, Martin, if you can please correct me. Anthropic, for example, tends to attract people who are developers, data scientists, machine learning experts who are quite conscious. I will just pause my rambling here. Anything that comes to mind, Mike, based on what I said?
No, I think you're right. Like, data privacy, transparency, fairness has to come back into the conversation. If we look about a year ago, there was much more conversation. It was led by, Anthropic and their CEO, Dario. But it seems like we've gotten away from that, because what's become the focus is kind of the race to be first, and at all costs. I'm seeing this in the United States, especially the time I spent in San Francisco and Seattle with the Google and the Microsofts and the Amazon, the Apples and the Metas of the world, is that topic is not on the forefront, right? It's not. And what we've seen most recently is at all costs, right? Build data centers, buy GPUs, access data, increase capacity. So it's unfortunate. And in some ways, those are the things we need to bring back in this collaboration, is, that discussion about ways that there could be accountability at the core of AI.
Yeah, and I'm just reminded of how when Google started out, their ethos was "don't be evil," which is in a way encapsulates ethical thinking at the center of things. But they don't operate by that slogan anymore. So maybe there's a similar development with some of these companies starting out with beautiful ideas and then dropping them along the way. Hopefully not, because we're kind of dependent on them remaining focused on ethics and benefit and human flourishing, and not just getting fastest to the top. But yeah. But how, so you're operating in 160 plus countries, I saw, that's a lot of it's a lot of countries.
Yes, it is.
So they would have, I guess, quite diverse cultural values and ethical norms. But how do you balance kind of like a universal AI ethics with a respect for different cultural perspectives on technology and what human flourishing is? Is that an issue you run into, or is it? Do you think that people are largely in agreement?
No, it is an issue. And one of the things we're focusing on is having local representation in these 160 countries, because there are cultural norms. There are countries that are, moving quickly, some that are, wanting to move quicker. And only do the people within those countries that are on the street, understand exactly where they are, what would work. So, I have, conversations today with Turkey, Switzerland, now Australia, and each country has different AI needs and rules and regulations, and just the way they look at, the opportunity to get trained and have AI literacy, as you said, Natalie. So, yeah, we're trying to, working with local representation in those countries so they can translate that back to us. And then in country, we can work with them as AI trainers, AI consultants, because they also have the local language. So, we're able to do the programs in Arabic, French, Italian, Spanish. And really what helps us is that local presence.
And is there something within the training when you certify these individuals, these professionals, and to go out into the workforce? Do you have any specific practices or frameworks that ensure that AI implementations do promote human well-being rather than efficiency, as we mentioned? Is there something in your programs that speak specifically to that?
Yeah, prior to our conversation, I met with our product team, and they said roughly 10% of the content of the presentations of the plans that the students put together is focusing on ethical AI. We intertwine that within the programs to make sure that that's a talking point, that it's important, and that they can take those learnings into the workforce, the world, into the classroom. So there is a big focus on that. And in addition, Natalie mentioned it, we're vendor agnostic too. So we don't push Google Cloud, AWS, Azure. We're a vendor agnostic, but makes it much easier to be focusing on ethical AI for a good part of the learning in the programs.
And yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Go, Matt. I think the question, well, as usual, a couple of things in my mind, but I'll try to to stick to one. The ethical AI, we're glad to hear 10% of the curriculum, it's focused on that. The question that comes to mind, what is ethical, right? Back to Martin's point about different cultures, different norms. You were involved with policy heavily in the past, Mike. And we had here Merv Hickok. I don't know if you are across Merv. She's quite active in the US as well in the policy space. I think she's the vice president of the Center for AI Digital Policy now. I think that the discourse that we hear is that it's very hard to define what is ethical because, as you know, it depending on culture, norms, etc. But there are some basics, that definitely countries organizations can comply. But I wonder, how does that look like in the curriculums, and if there is these are challenging in translating what's ethical, especially for the the curriculums that you have for the data scientists, for the more hands-on, because I think the question is always, okay, we can define the policy, but good luck implementing these into, AI solutions, more in a more technical realm. So, so just on that, the definition of what is ethical, we can talk about what is ethical, but how does that look like in the actual code solutions, the architecture of AI? Yeah, I don't know if you had that conundrum, happening for you guys as well.
Yeah, and a great point was around the difference between the programs for data scientists compared to the transformation leaders on the C level, on the strategy level, and then on the beginner's journey. We have certifications specifically for beginners, and the ethical AI is different for each course, for each certification. So, for example, the C level, they have to take a look at ethical AI within the organization. The engineers and data scientists have the ability to influence the AI within corporations if they can go in and tweak the dials. And so they have to keep in mind, when they're setting up those parameters, that there is ethical AI in place. So it's really depending on the different certification. And we keep ethical AI in mind when we bring in our guest speakers to talk to the students, when the students create their transformation plans, which they submit to us and then are reviewed. So it's really intertwined, not just in the overall content, but in each different track, because ethical AI means different things to different people within different organizations. So we try to keep it based on title.
Yeah, I think my my work. Sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, ethical AI is it's hard in this day and age because we've got billions of dollars flying around. We've got big egos, right? Everybody wants to be first. So it's kind of been taken off the table. And what that's been replaced with is acceleration, right? How can we move faster? How can we get to the finish line instead of, hey, should we stop and think about things along the way and pause and, take a look at what the impact would be? But, it's unfortunate that seems to be not top of mind as way it seems like it was a year ago. And then, seems like what it should be.
Yeah, and I think my working definition for what is actually ethical would be, doing things that are of benefit and not doing things that are harmful, but also doing that in a wise and non-biased way, because we can have all these good intentions, but if we lack the skill and wisdom, we're gonna mess up things anyway. So it's and that's interesting in relation to this idea of just get this tool built, and then we try to figure out what to use it for and how to use it. But those considerations should be there at the very start, and it's like why are we building this thing, to what end?
Yeah,
and
I mean, I don't want to
how
look
can we
back,
put it to use?
right? And those questions are definitely not being asked, right? The only questions that are being asked is, how fast can we build a data center? How many GPUs can we acquire? How much money can we raise, right? How can we be first? How can our new model be better than the last? And after participating in these meetings, it's clear that, it's not the focus that people may even think it is, right? When it comes down to the conversations in those rooms, it's not a top of mind. And in fact, it's gotten to the point where it's, if you do bring it up, it's annoying, because everybody's like, okay,
Might slow us down.
we're
Well,
yeah, it might
and-
slow us down.
yeah. Thanks, Mike. Thanks so much for sharing openly, what you're seeing. It's good to have I think you're the first guest from the US that we have. So it's good to get your perspective. Of course, we know how much money is being invested, was made available to invest in AI. And of course, you have Seattle, you have the Silicon Valley, lots happening there. It's very hot. So it's interesting to hear, what you are experiencing. So thanks so much for sharing. And what comes to mind listening to you is that that story or knowledge of, and I think this was, excuse me, used to illustrate the, the VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity that we experienced in the 21st century. But before the AI boom, there was this analogy that it's like the humanity is in the train, in this very fast train, and everyone is telling what the driver is called in the train, whatever is that called, the driver of the train,
Conductor.
the conductor. We're all telling the conductor to go faster, 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 but we have no idea where the train is heading to. Just everyone telling the conductor to go faster, but we don't really know where we are going. So that comes to mind, that story, listening to you of the race. And we know that, of course, there are military, sovereignty, aspects, whichever country win the AI race, it's a whole another topic. But I think that makes me think that this podcast, Martin, is important. I don't know if it's my ego creeping in.
Yes,
But having those conversations, hopefully, that was our intention really when me and Martin, we got together, we say, oh, let's do this, because it's, creating space for having those discussions and bringing people to think about this and hopefully, plant some seeds. So thanks for making your time to be here with us. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's been helpful for me too, to kind of recenter, right? I had the opportunity, months ago to watch a lot of your podcasts, but then, as I said, I also listened to, AI Cure for Cancer today. And as I said, it kind of recentered me in the focus outside of acceleration, right? And with acceleration, your only concern is what would the pain points be if we came in second or third or fifth or 10th? So there's a justification there that, we have to move fast, because if we don't, the penalty is greater than us stopping and making sure we're doing it correctly. So we're in this like dog chasing its tail scenario. And what you mentioned too, when it comes down to it, the race is really about AI and the military complex in industry, right? So they're focusing on, sovereigns are focusing on what if somebody has AI first and they're able to implement that on the battlefield, then it doesn't matter if we incorporated ethical AI. It's just, it's game over. So there's this, underlying belief that that's, no one's really talking about that, but that's, that's kind of why it's accelerating.
So if someone is listening today to this podcast and they want to contribute to this vision of a mindful and more human-centered AI, whether they're a student or educator or business leader, what would you say would be the most impactful step that they can take to ensure a ethical AI moving forward?
Well, I think first is listen to the podcast, right? Be able to educate yourself, to be able to talk, about it, to actually participate, right? If you don't know the basics, then it's hard to have the conversation and it's hard to be part of it. And, just to be kind of vigilant about it, knowing full well, nobody, the train has left the station and there's nothing but coal being, there's no brake, all gas on this thing. So, it's our job to kind of be a voice, because it's not, it's not the boardroom. It's not the data center. It's not necessarily in Silicon Valley. So it's gotta be here.
Yeah, and the toothpaste not going back into the tube, is it? It's AI is here and it is accelerating, so we need to take the reins.
Yeah, and yeah, it feels like the energy is kind of down with a little bit of this conversation. There's a little bit of the doom and gloom. But I like to, back to your question, Matt. I don't know if that's what you're trying to do. What can we do? We have agency. I truly believe we have agency. Back to the same. You work with sustainability before, Mike, and I don't think you mentioned, but Mike worked with Al Gore, right? No, and Clinton as well, right? I mean, back in the days. So we have agency, and back to, sustainability, we talk about we can make an impact with how we spend our money, every dollar that you spend, you make a decision. So the same with AI, which tools we choose to use. And as AI consumers that we are all, AI consumers, I think we can impact, not just having conversations in the dialogue here, but also which tool we decide to use and not to use, and etc. Yes, I think we do have agency still. There is still time to change the course, I think.
And the acceleration topic is also tied to not just the concern, but also it's tied to the benefit, right? It's saying that let's not stop because we could get that cure for cancer, right? And if we get cure for cancer, that's impact and return on investment is greater than stopping and making sure things are correct and right? So the race can not just be for the battlefield, but the race can be for the hospital bed too. So there's that justification also.
Yeah, and I think we do try to in this podcast really emphasize the AI for good aspect of things. I was reading someone compiled the list of just amazing things that AI already has contributed. I don't remember most of it, but for example, there's a woman who she had lost her voice, and she'd been using one of those kind of robotic sounding voice boxes, but now through AI, she was actually able to speak with her own voice through, they had some old recording and they could use AI to actually mimic her voice perfectly, and now she could sound like herself again. So those are little things, but just from the tiny ways that it's enhancing people's lives to more transformative ways, I do think there is a lot of good happening. And I'm it's also very good what you're doing in educating people to use these tools in the most responsible and best ways possible.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, I was going to say we're caught in a bubble, right? Like I personally am thinking that, this is obvious and everybody knows these buzzwords and everybody's used it in this way, but that, it's not the case, right? Especially here in the United States, there's a lot of people that are still skeptical, right? Like, I went to a conference for HR leaders, and these were HR professionals from all over the United States. And then many times, more than I imagined, the conversations were around, we're not ready yet for AI. Okay, we're thinking about it. We're going to get to it. We're scared. It's going to take our job. And, I think that, is not the right attitude. But we have to remember the three of us and other people in the industry is that we have to make it more accessible, right? We don't have to use these words that we already know nobody else understands. We have to make sure teachers, employers, understand the benefits instead of the fear, especially in the education area. I'm meeting with teachers and administrators, and there's still some pushback of, oh, well, we don't let our students use AI, right? And it's like, well, they are using it. So, don't worry about making it.
Yeah, you better embrace it.
Right. In fact, I encourage my children. They say, I have 11-year-old son, 11 and 12-year-old, and I encourage them to use AI. And I say, hey, if your teachers have an issue with this, let's have a conversation with them. So, we have to understand that, the rest of the world is not, is still concerned, right? And still, not understanding where to start. And that's why, we're out there trying to help kind of make it more accessible, right? Make it more digestible. Because once you do that, it will snowball. And, what I'm seeing is also like there's countries that aren't, don't have that concern, fear, trepidation. And those countries have the ability to leapfrog and create this, new world orders. Countries in the Middle East are, aggressively moving forward and educating their population. And that's going to give them, years advantage. So they're smart enough to say, okay, but we're going to invest dollars, legislation, time, effort in educating the citizens of our country. And if you do that, your country is going to be more successful. It's a direct correlation.
Yeah, if you can leverage that, for sure. All right. So I don't know. Is there anything, we've been weaving through a few different topics, but is there anything that you think we should have covered that we've missed, or is there anything on your mind that we haven't gone over so far?
No, I think we have to welcome, everyone into their personal AI journey. We have to make sure that, we're using terminology that's not buzzwords like, there's so many, right? Where to start, right? MCP, da, da, da. So, we have to encourage people to start the journey and not assume everyone has. And, that's a journey for students and employees. It's really for one of the things we struggle with at USAII is it's for everyone, right? It's for your grandparents, it's for your students. They can all and should all have the ability to participate, because if it's not going to be 5 years a pretty picture if we stay the way we are now, right? So it's moving quicker than people imagine. And because of that, that we're in the right field of educating people. Your podcast does an amazing job, much different than a lot of the other podcasts, which are basically like build, move fast, excitement. They raise 30 billion or 10 billion and, this costs this much, and this data center is this many square feet, this model outperformed, right? Your messaging is refreshing out there, and I appreciate it. Everybody else should too.
Thank you
Thanks so
for
much,
those
Mike.
very kind words.
Very kind. Martin, I have 3 more questions.
Okay.
We try to keep the episode under 1 hour, so we'll see how much we can do. Maybe we do what they call a quick fire, Mike. But the 3 topics in my mind, if you can speak to that briefly or as long as you want, it's I love your point around terminology, being inclusive or be mindful, avoid jargons to make it that more available and less intimidating for people. So that's a good point around what I'm calling inclusive terminology. So my question is around environmental impact, going back to the birds, your bird watching, that's where we started, like going full circle, environmental impact of AI and infrastructure of AI. So we spoke about Malaysia, Africa, countries in Africa are developing countries, for lack of better word. So it's great to have education, but data centers, it's very expensive, right? The infrastructure for AI is very expensive. So I don't want to go back to the AI race or the new arms race, which is not the AI race, but I'm wondering what's your view on how these countries are coping with having infrastructure, because it's not just education, you also need to have the infrastructure. And probably a question that is not appropriate, but I'm going to ask anyway, how affordable are the courses from the USAII in terms of affordability? Because I imagine that you guys are not a not-for-profit, right? So I think I kind of alluded to that at the beginning, the commercial aspect of the organization. So I think the three topics, you go wherever you like, Mike. One is environmental impact, water consumption, etc. Energy, as we know, AI has this massive environmental impact. And how is that going to impact your bird watching hobby? The other ones are on infrastructure, especially in developing countries, the cost of infrastructure, and how affordable are the courses at the Institute? So go wherever you like, please, Mike.
Yeah, well, I think the first part is, the impact to the climate and society on the energy consumption side. So I also spent many years in sustainability, specifically at Moody's, where I was on the ESG risk rating side, where we did environmental analysis. I worked within the energy sector with oil and gas companies. So understanding the energy sector, and when you see things like Microsoft buying nuclear facilities, right, it becomes clear that there's a correlation between energy and the output, right, and the compute that we're seeing now. But then it kind of goes back to the, what are the cost benefit analysis, meaning if AI solves climate issues faster than the consumption of the energy, that's reason to move fast, right? So it's this, you could justify it, right? Maybe that never happens, but do you stop providing this massive amount of energy to data centers to be able to save the planet when potentially AI can? But it's an unknown, right? That's an unknown. So you can have, there's these constant, back and forth, justification for all of this, right? And it kind of goes to the stop, accelerate, pause. Well, if we can cure cancer, doesn't make sense to stop, right? If we can have world peace because everybody has access to AI on the battlefield, then we shouldn't stop, right? So I'm conflicted myself on, what necessarily to do, because who knows, right? That nobody knows the answer. And then to the part of USAI, being affordable, we try to make the programs affordable for students. Our price points are, in the hundreds of dollars to $2,000 for the C-level program at the height. But we try to make that digestible by country. I know there's a lot of, we're working with a lot of grants, government grants, student grants, to be able to provide these, provide this at an affordable cost. But to answer your question, it's not like an MIT, program, or it's not like university 100,000 a year. It's in the hundreds.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And how are you seeing these developing countries, setting up infrastructure, to compete, not even to compete in the AI race, but to just, make AI available. Although, of course, most of the apps that are being used, the infrastructure is in the US.
Yeah, I think one of the difficult things here is that our fate is going to be decided by 5 companies, right? Because the barrier to entry is so high, is billions, right? That to participate in the building of the data centers and, providing the credits for the AWS or Google to get that type of processing power is difficult, right? So like a Microsoft and Google, they own the data centers, they own the data, they have unlimited amount of resources to make sure this is successful. So it's, we're at their mercy. Right. It's just sad to think, but Microsoft, Google, we're kind of at whatever they do, whatever they decide, we're the byproduct. Just kind of unfortunate, but that's the way it is, right? And you look at Microsoft and Google, I mean, they're bigger than countries, right? They're bigger GDP than like 80% of the countries in the world. In fact, like Microsoft is bigger than like 6 countries, amount of employees, the amount of revenue. So, it's inevitability that they're gonna win.
Yes. Thanks so much, Mike. And thanks for sharing that you feel divided as well with those big topics around climate, as you mentioned. Now, it could be a solution, it could be a disaster. We don't know. But yes, as Martin said, the toothpaste is out of the tube. We can't really stop. But I'm glad that you're here with us having this conversation. And I'm glad that you were there, because it sounds like you're definitely not in the dark side, right? You have a really good intention, good heart, and it's good that you're being part of those conversations as well. And we didn't talk about having the human in the loop, which I think is a very important concept from, I heard the first time from Professor Stuart Russell, author of Human Compatible. But I believe that in the end of the day, AI can be only as ethical as the human behind, the humans behind the developers, the people behind, the people in those rooms having those conversations, people that are designing, implementing, etc. So it's good that you are involved in those conversations. So thank you.
Well,
that's all from me, I guess.
Yeah, I was just going to say one last thing. I was listening to another podcast today, and one of the concerns will be if AI creates its own language that it only understands, and then it will start to communicate with itself or its other instances. And then at that point, there's no controlling the ethics side of it, right? Once it's able to, go beep, 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 to its counterparts, then the ethical AI is out the window, because we're no longer in control. So they were saying that's that day when it creates its own language and decides to only talk amongst themselves, that we're in trouble. And when it starts to improve itself without us being the human in the loop is when things get out of control.
And I would love to stop in that humorous note, but what's coming to mind is that when I did my background is in computer science. When I did my degree, we used to talk about having a contingency plan, right? If the system is down, we have a system with a form that you can complete, and it can complete the process, whatever that is. So you have a backup plan, you have a contingency plan. Of course, nowadays we don't have such a thing, right? We don't have contingency plan for for many areas that we rely on systems. And if we're talking about AI, if we're relying on AI is involved, in the food chain, for example, and AI just goes, create my own language, what's the impact, for us? But I don't want to end in that note.
No, I
Martin,
think
bring something else.
no, I just I think the thing is that so far there is AI does not have intention, goals, desires. It is just it's a statistical prediction machine. It's not conscious. It's not a mind. It's not intending to create languages or outcompete humans or put us out of the loop, because it doesn't have any of that type of inner life. It's just we prompt it and it produces the most statistically relevant result, which turns out to be amazingly helpful. But it doesn't mean that it's out to get us, because it's not out to do anything from its side. So I think that's
right.
Hopefully, so far. Then maybe we'll invent AI that is intending things, but
well, yeah,
hopefully not.
Martin, what if that's all it really is? What if it's just a word predictor? What if it's just a pattern matcher, right? And we're worried about all this, and we're thinking it's going to overtake the world. Maybe it's just like a tool that fills in the blanks really, really well. So
I have to, but it's making decisions. I don't think it's going to be able to cut. We need to have part 2, but AI is making decisions. We are delegating decisions to AI. AI is making decisions. Who is going to get the loan? Who is going to, it's making decisions, unfortunately. So, and I believe that most of the time, most of the use cases, humans are in the loop. But I think, in years to come, we might remove a human from the loop because of cost and other reasons. So, yes, it's true. AI is as good as we train and the data we put in. But AI, we are using AI to make decisions. So,
yeah, and that's been historically, right? For the past 20 years, whether you get a loan or you get shot down from a loan was based on algorithms. And in those algorithms, there was bias. We saw it over and over. So this is something that we've had to kind of approach for a quite long period of time. I think what's different here is that bias won't be able to be tracked to a algorithm that had been set, right? I think AI is just going to be like, here's the answer. You told me what you wanted me to do. I'm not going to tell you how I did it. This is it. So you do what you want. Right? And at some point, we're either going to have to be like, we trust that answer, or we go with our gut, or we go with the old system, which was machine learning and algorithms. So, that's another area. I've had conversations with, climate risk analysis. And if AI comes up with an answer that's correct, do we really even need to know how it came up with that, right? Historically, we needed to know that answer. But, who knows? We'll say. The beauty of this whole thing is the beauty, and the bad part too is nobody really knows where this is going, how it works. So, it's kind of like we're going into this blind, right? Because he's still
which is also at the same time, it's both very frightening and very exciting. So,
yes.
we're I was just gonna say we're coming up towards the hour, but Natalie has something that she desperately wants to say. Yeah.
I can help to. It reminds me of is that Matrix that he had the Oracle You know, it's like AI is becoming the AI oracle, right? Because explainability, I think, which is one aspect, in addition to fairness, it's the AI ethicist talks a lot about explainability. I think it will get harder and harder, AI becoming a black box. But I just wanted maybe to touch on a positive use case of AI to try to finish in a good note. So, we mentioned a couple of great use cases. I think AI in aged care, it's another fantastic example of AI for good. AI in agriculture, I've seen on video the other day about AI, how robots helping in agriculture, weeds and removing or reducing the number of pesticides. There are innumerous, many great use cases of AI. So we definitely believe, in the positive impact of AI, but we're trying to bring some balance to the discussion. So thanks again, Mike, for your time and your energy. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And we usually,
thank you.
the end of these things, we always end up saying, we need to do a part 2 of this. That's always where we tend to end up, because there's so many interesting things. But yeah, it's been lovely to talk to you, and it's like Natalie said,
Me too.
It is good that there are people with good intentions, good motivations, and also focus on how important it is for the humans that do use and implement AI to consider the ethical aspect, to consider that it is ultimately there to promote human flourishing. And so it's been lovely to see that you're definitely, that seems to where you be coming from. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And I'm a big fan of the podcast, so this is a true honor. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. And yeah, so let's have you back for part 2 in the future. And yeah, in the meantime, good luck with all the great work you're doing. And thank you for joining us today. All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye for now.